Welcome to the Leominster School Committee
I got plenty of juice.
meeting. It is
Don't worry about it.
Monday, April 24th. We are at Appleseed's Restaurant. This is for a regular
Okay.
school committee meeting. Would you all stand and join me in the salute to the flag? Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll now move on to the public forum session of the meeting. Would anyone like to address the school committee? If so, on the microphone, and just your name for the record, please. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Beth Ortega, and I'm a resident of Leominster, and all three of my children have been part of the Leominster public school system. In this instance, however, I'd like to talk to you about my experience as a person on the other side of the parent-teacher equation and discuss the impact that low resources have on the vulnerable population that I have the honor of serving every day as a special educator. I teach resource level special education English here at the high school. As special educators, we are consistently asked to do more with less. We have little to no curriculum and regularly out of compliance in our classrooms. I personally design every single resource that my students use on a daily basis on my own time. One of the hardest things about being a special educator at the high school is that not only are we given the sparsest set of tools, we're also not given adequate spaces to do our best teaching. We're either asked to inhabit the smallest classroom spaces that don't accommodate the varied needs of our students, or we're asked to share other teachers' rooms, all with the excuse, but your numbers are low. Yes, our numbers may be smaller than some, but the individual needs of our students are very large. And quite frankly, the idea that our students are viewed as numbers is offensive. They're not numbers, they're children, they're people. And for the most of them, learning is really hard. They deserve as many resources to help them succeed as their neurotypical peers get. We hear often that our standardized testing growth isn't enough. The high school lost our level 1 status, and the data has shown that it's due to the low performance from these special populations, and yet when we as educators ask for the resources to help them make those gains, we're told your numbers are small. My population ranges from students with health disorders to life skills students with moderate disabilities, and they're all in the same classroom together. I have upwards of 14 students at one time. The range of my students' needs is drastically different, so in order to best serve them, I provide differentiated instruction. I base their individual needs, and I give them support for their social emotional needs as well. And those social emotional needs are ever growing. Once those ever moving pieces are in place, then we can get down to the business of actually learning. So when you're discussing budgets and looking at the numbers, please remember they're in no way small. And without the proper spaces, tools, and paraprofessionals, it only takes away from what these students require to receive their best possible education and get what they deserve, which is equity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Anyone else like to address the committee? If so, step forward to the microphone and just your name for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Carrie Noseworthy, and I'm a resident of Leominster and the parent of 2 children on IEPs in the Leominster public school system. I'm not as prepared and eloquent right now as Beth was, but I want to really support what she said from the parent angle. My children have come very far. I am very lucky to be sitting here before you. They're both in the LEAP program. They're different children than they were when they started. But that required a lot of advocacy on my part, a lot of advocacy. And I feel that it's my duty to advocate for the other children with special needs in our city. For many of the reasons that Beth had already mentioned, equity. You know, each of these children is very important, and not just for the, you know, the moral piece of doing right by the child, but quite honestly, the more services they get at an earlier point in their lifespan, the better off they're going to be in the long run, and quite honestly, the less money that they're going to cost Leominster in the long run. So it's not only morally responsible, but I think it's financially responsible to make sure that these children have what they need to do well in the classroom, especially with the social emotional piece, with everything that's going on right now, the levels of homelessness, mental health, if people have different statuses of citizenship. There's a lot going on that we can't control. And, you know, these children, if they stay in Leominster, are going to grow up to become adults that live in Leominster. And I think whether they work at a gas station or go to MIT, as a taxpayer, even if I didn't have children, I think we owe it to them to give them the best chance at being successful. And I also am here to say that I'm very supportive of all of these additional positions for special education, because our teachers can't do it if we don't support them. They can do the best they can, but you know, it comes to a breaking point, I think. And at some point, you're going to have too many kids on IEPs with diverse needs, and the best teacher in the world is not going to be able to sit at home for 3 hours and figure out how to make it work. So I beg of you to, as Beth had mentioned about the numbers, to really think about the equity of the education that we're providing for all of our students, whether they're in life skills or whether they're an A+ student in the college track. They all deserve a chance to be as independent and as successful as they can be. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the committee? Once again, one last time? If not, we'll close this portion of the meeting. And, see if I can find it. I lost that. There it is. She's on the next page. Leominster School Committee Statement. The committee represents the needs of all Leominster Public School students and places their interests above all others. We will exercise leadership, adhere to our protocols, and base our decision upon a reasoned assessment of all available information. We'll advocate for each of our schools and support high-quality education in Leominster. And now, we move on to communications. Do we have any communications?
Through the chair, there are no communications for the school committee this evening.
All right. Superintendent's report.
Very short report. Spring recess last week. Everybody seemed to escape and get away and do some different things. So looked like everybody returned safely and ready for the next 9 weeks of school. All I do is just mention to parents that this is the time of year where there's a lot of activities in the schools. Leading up to the senior festivities with award presentations and graduation first Saturday in June. So keep an eye on the school calendars for your particular schools, and please come out and participate in the spring activities. So that ends the superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you. And we'll now move on to presentations, committee discussions. Go to item 2A, 2017-2018 pupil personnel services.
Okay, Ned's going to provide a presentation tonight on PPS, which is Pupil Personnel Services. We're kind of kicking off our presentations for the FY18 budget. You have to remember that PPS is one of the larger percentages of the budget, with in-district programming for special education and English language students, out-of-district student placements, related transportation services for special education students per IEPs, and other pupil services. And the other pupil services include social emotional learning supports, speech and language services, PTOT services, and the facilitation of all staffing related to PPS and related services provided to students. And that includes school psychologists, social workers, guidance counselors, special education teachers, tutors, and paraprofessionals. So it's a big portion of the budget, and Ned's here to give you a quick overview and answer any questions that you might have.
Great, thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me here tonight. I will keep the presentation brief. It was included in your package, but I do want to just outline where we're going with the presentation and then take one section at a time. So we're going to talk a little bit about special education facts and figures, special education programming, finances from FY12 to FY17, current trends, future trends, and then a chance for some questions at the end. So first one, approximately 6,037 students in Leominster past year, and approximately 20% of the student body has been identified as a student with disabilities. The state average is 17%. For a number of years, we were at the 17% or so figure, but over the course of the last few years, we had some additional folks in our district that were homeless and having other needs, and that drove the number up a little bit. Of the approximately 1,200 special ed students, approximately 6% of our students are in out-of-district placements. So they go to school apart from Leominster, ranging from schools right next door in Lancaster all the way to up to Beverly. So they're all around. We've had a 3% growth in special education students since FY12. Growth factors include the homeless, which I just mentioned, the acuity of needs of the younger populations. This is something you've heard from me many times. The number of students that we're seeing that have really severe emotional disabilities, severe mental health issues, and their families is just increasing. And the ongoing mental health special needs that kids have, it's just stunning, the number of students that have been presented to us. Since FY12, fiscal year 12, we've had a 53% increase in students with emotional disabilities from FY12. And students with autism since fiscal year 12, we've had a 78% growth, which is a huge growth. But that reflects nationwide what's going on in terms of the autism community. Probably the most stunning figure of all tonight is that since FY12, we've had 135% growth in mental health hospitalizations for all students. Short-term, long-term, few days, and all of these, by the way, necessitate tutoring. And I want to say from the outset that we've adopted many years ago a philosophy that we can not, we were allowed by law not to offer tutoring right off the bat to students. It's a number of days. We offer tutoring to anybody entering the hospital from day one. Usually we contract with a service that's at the hospital, and it is fairly low cost, but still, it's very important for our students to continue to have that help while they're being hospitalized. That 135% growth piece is huge.
Do you know what the cost of that? So you measured it from year to 12 to 17. What is the increased cost in that alone? Do you know that?
In terms of the mental health hospitalizations?
Mm-hmm.
So,
And the tutoring?
yeah, the tutoring itself comes to about $25 an hour. Typically,
I
it's...
meant the total cost.
Oh, the total cost from FY12, I do not have that number.
Can you get that?
Sure, of course, yes.
Because I think, as we talk about things, when you compare the data from 2012 to 2017, the relevance of it, I don't know what any of it means. I know what cost means when you sort of look at the cost to keep up with it. Was there somewhere else that we could save? Was there another contractor that we could hire? Was it those kinds of things. So I don't know where, I don't know any of that. All I know is from 2012 to 2017 is 135%.
Sure. And this part of the presentation was meant just to show the cumulative increase from FY12.
Right.
But we will get those figures for the school committee.
Thank you.
So just want to jump back to programming for a second, just to talk about the tremendous support that the community, the school committee, mayors, superintendent have given the district over a number of years. In FY12, when we came on board, our autism program ended at grade 2, and through collaborative work together, we were able to provide more services as we went along. And there was really no BCBA, board certified behavior analysis positions in the district. And the continuous services ended at grade 2, and that was kind of stunning when I walked in the door. The Student Support Service Center programs had limited services and no dedicated therapeutic service, which is a really important component, as we've discussed before, of any kind of mental health type services in school. We didn't really have a 9 to 12 alternative program. The credit recovery program served grades 11 and 12. So 9 and 10 were kind of floundering in terms of what we could do for alternatives. So now where we have, again, through tremendous support, is full autism programming from pre-K to post-grad, 3 BCBAs at the early childhood. We have a autism specialist who's been with us for a long time, who really should be a BCBA. She has that kind of skill. She's great. We have SSC programming, including full continuum of services, including intensive therapeutic services coordinated by Jen Mundy, who we all know, who does a great job of working both in-house and also coordinating services from external forces, which is a huge piece in helping our kids and their families get better. And then we have LCE, which serves all students. I wanted to step back for a second and talk about the Academic Learning Center. You've heard a little bit about this from high school, where we're trying to really combine and unify so many different approaches at the high school and provide a place and a program for not only students with disabilities, but also students who don't have disabilities to be able to come and get some help on a short and long-term basis, and also make it very natural working with their peers. So it's a very integrated service, and we're looking at also integrating our current credit recovery services within the context of the ALC. So a lot of good things happening there at the high school to begin to look at that. Again, I want to take a brief look at just some of where we come for finances. And back in FY12, we had 126 students out of district, and we were spending $6.3 million, almost $6.4 million a year. Currently, we have 71 students out of district, and we're slated to schedule about $5.5 million this year. If we just kept and frozen in time the FY12 out of district, and all those students continue to move through the programming without any movement in and out of the district or coming back to the district, etc., that figure based upon 3% increases, both collaborative increases in operational services division, which sets the rates for the private schools, would be about $8.5 million this year. So that's a stunning difference in terms of what we're spending right now. The actual funds saved in the out-of-district costs, we know what we did with those. We reinvested those through your support in positions for PPS as well as gen ed needs. Again, tremendous teamwork on the part of everybody around this table and in the district to be able to put some of those programming in place that needed to be put in place at those times. Last year, we sought about $1.4 million in positions. Just about all of them necessary to remain in compliance. I'm not going to go in again to everything I've said to you many times before, but one of the things we did say is that without these positions, we're going to see increased compliance issues. We're going to see increased situations with overcrowding in the classroom. We're going to see increased number of parents seeking out-of-district placements because they feel like students aren't receiving a free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment. All these things are true. And again, I say this statement not as an indictment of anybody around this table. We know the funding issues are not just a local issue. We know the funding issues are a state issue. We certainly know that the funding issues are a national issue. And as always, here at the locals, we see things trickle down, and they don't trickle down enough. Plus, some of the formulas are antiquated in terms of how we get our money, Chapter 70, and we've talked about that many times. What I'm saying is that needs haven't changed. And without these positions, as stated by a few people already this evening, it's going to be increasingly difficult to maintain our compliance. I was saying to somebody just prior to the meeting that right now about a third of my time is dealing with legal compliance issues. Litigation, pre-litigation, hearings, mediations, and those kinds of things. I expect that to go up a lot. So, where are our future needs for finances? Well, transportation costs.
Yeah, can just 1 second?
Sure, of course.
So if you look at fiscal year 12.
Are we on that previous slide?
Yeah, and you take that amount, let's rough it to 60.
6.4?
6.4 million.
Yeah.
You divide it out, it comes to 50,776 per student.
Sure.
And then you take 2017, and you do 5,000,005, rounded off 5.6. With 71 students, it's almost $78,000. So that's they're almost a $30,000
Right.
between 2012 and 2017.
Right. So programming is increasing at the state level, and just a quick aside, one of the interesting pieces on the statewide level is that, let's say you run a private day program, and you need 2 more positions, because, it's just you need a nurse and someone else. The state has a mechanism where it allows the district, in the middle of the year, to increase their prices. So many times when I've budgeted, say, for $300 a day for a student, sometimes in the middle of the year, you can go up to $330 a day per student, because the state said, well, you need these 2 people. Now, we don't have that luxury in our program. If we need 2 more positions, we don't have any way of doing that without increasing the cost of our budget. So it is interesting to see that. And also, too, the cost of programming has really increased a lot. So where are we with future needs? So transportation costs, special education transportation costs take up more than half of what transportation costs are in the whole budget. We have done a tremendous job in our office, I believe, in working with the business office to work with other districts to keep the costs down and make sure that if there's sending a student to another new school, that we maybe jump on a bus that's already in existence, so the cost is less. But if you're talking about a student that's going out of district and there's nobody else that we can pair them with in our district and we have to get a new bus, we're talking $180. If it's a student that has a disability that may cause them some angst, we may have to do a monitor on that bus at the same time. So it is a huge cost, and most of our day programming is 200 days, so you're talking $36,000 alone for a bus. And all we know that. I'm just saying to you again, it's just one of those pieces that's huge. Tuition costs continue to go up, both with private day programs and also with our collaborative projects. They do a good job of keeping tuitions lower, but doesn't stop them from raising tuitions, and we see tuition increases every single year for all of our students. So even when we try to work with our collaborative partners, like FLAC and CAPS, because they're closer to home, because there's a little better give and take than our private day partners, we're still seeing costs that increase every year. As you've heard many times, professional development is huge for our district. We have so many specialized pieces that we need to train our staff on, and never enough money to do so. Again, just a little bit of history. We have a targeted special ed professional development grant that when I first came on board in FY12 they were giving us about $98,000 a year, and now we're down to about $37,000. So they keep reducing it. And the paperwork and the compliance and the hoops that we have to go through to get the money has increased many times. It's a real tough situation to do. So we're seeing that again, and again, due to our, credit to our staff and our principals, there's many innovative ways that we do professional development, and we do a lot of teaching ourselves and learning from each other, peer learning, which is good. Had a conversation earlier, technology. We continue to look at how we can best serve our kids, and I had a great conversation earlier with Stacey. We were talking about iPads, the most natural occurring technology pieces in our environment, and our kids are using these left, right, and center for lots of things: talking, looking, reading, writing, communicating, and beyond that, we have many specialized pieces. Home hospital tutoring has been, as we talked a little bit earlier in our presentation, continuing to increase the number of students that we've had to tutor. We do have, thankfully, a number of our current staff that actually tutor students at home if they can't come to school, and we're willing to do that after school. And that's great. That helps us with our costs too, and also being the connection between home and school. But that's increasing. And then I think one of the biggest pieces in terms of where we're going in terms of kids getting older, internships, workforce training, job placement. The number of students across the state, talking to other special ed directors, that parents are now refusing diplomas even though the students have passed MCAS and have all the graduation requirements necessary to graduate. Parents are refusing diplomas because they don't feel that their students are ready to go to the workforce or to college. And the end result of that is litigation in almost every case. So it's just, and again, I'm not making a value judgment about parents, and you all heard me before this committee, privately and publicly, that I believe that parents need to and should be advocating individually for their kids' rights. And I've never had a problem with that as a special ed director, but there is a direct impact in terms of district cost and also district time doing that. So it's really a huge piece. Yep.
Can a parent choose to, not take the diploma and have them stay until 22?
So, yeah.
Or are you talking of children who are 22 not taking their diploma?
Okay, how much time do we have tonight? No, because it's actually on both ends of that. So there's parents, when the students reach 22, saying the school district didn't fulfill their responsibilities to educate my child, and they're litigating those situations. And then we have the students that have passed MCAS and have fulfilled graduation requirements that are saying no. And without getting into specifics, we take each one of those situations individually, as we should, and we look at them based on a number of factors, and then we work with the parents, our legal representatives, and we come to some decisions on how to do things. So it's on both ends, yeah.
How many parents have refused?
In this district so far, 5 since I've been here.
So you've been here?
25 years. No, I mean 6 years.
Well, no, I'm just asking.
Yeah, no, it's been 5. But the number of conversations that we've had about that is probably 25 or 30, where we work through situations. And there's a variety of ways that we've come to solutions. Sometimes it's a intensive tutoring program over the summer before the students, graduate. They walk with their peers, but they're doing some other things. Or sometimes it's a partnership with a community college. It's different ways of handling it, depending upon the student need. But I anticipate seeing more and more of that.
Are these out-of-district kids, or are these in-district students?
So it's been, we've had a fair number of in-district kids. We've had less of the out-of-district kids, but that's because we have less numbers out-of-district. But it's always a concern, and as it is with every parent, my son or daughter is not ready to leave this great school that they're in. So we do have to take each situation with a lot of sensitivity and working through, how can we best do this based upon the data in front of us and based upon the idea that, if each party litigates, it's a horrendous situation. There's, so many things with litigation, nobody really wins. It's a really hard process. So we try to work informally through a lot of it.
And how are you with, out-of-district students? What I saw in my last few years of working here was there were less and less out-of-district students choosing to take a Leominster High School diploma, which they, if they qualified, were entitled to, but they were choosing to take the out-of-district school. They'd rather take that diploma than to get a Leominster High diploma.
And it's mixed right now. We have a number of our students that want to walk across graduation. It's a really big deal. Can take 2. There's a misconception that they can take 2 diplomas, which it's not a 2-for-1. It's really one or the other. When I talk with parents, if they ask me my opinion, I'd say it's really better to take the Leominster diploma because it's more well-known than a private day program, so to speak. And I'm not diminishing the the legality of that is it's just more well known, it's regular high school, but again, it's parent prerogative, which way, and student prerogative at that point.
I guess my question is to piggyback on owner's question. Maybe it's the devil in me. How does the kid feel about all this?
Well, it depends on the student, right? So some students, when they're 18, they're their own decision makers. That's by law, when you turn 18, you can make the decisions. So we've had some very strong opinions from the kids, which is good. Sometimes it's shared decision making with the parents and the student.
Well, that's where I was leading up to. How much, yeah, it's the devil.
So
How much is the percentage, the kid and the parents? Is it 80-40? I
So-
mean, 80-20, or 60-40, or 75-25, or 25?
Let me go the other way, probably
what's the-
easier. So if we have a student that is with us till 22 and has some significant disabilities, typically parent would have guardianship of that student.
Mhm.
So they'll be making all the educational decisions for them. We have a number of our students who are out-of-district placements that have some significant disabilities where I would say many of those students share decision-making with their parents. Although it is interesting that the student can flip that switch off in a second and say, no, I'm deciding. It's all me now, not you. So that's interesting around the tables in the number of years I've been a special director. And then a small number of students, very small number of students have that don't have significant disabilities allow their parents to take full guardianship. Usually they want to be their own guardian, so to make their own decisions. So it's pretty mixed, depending on, and again, each case is individual too. Really hard to see. You may have a student that has a real high cognitive profile, but has some severe emotional disturbances, and it's a shared is really the best for them. That's a decision that each parent and students make. It's a very tough decision, a very personal one. So, and we honor whatever decisions parents make. We have nothing to do with that. We just respond to whatever has the authority.
Okay.
And there's one more sheet, and then a couple more quick ones. So, current trends, as we've stated, out-of-district requests are increasing. It's more litigation, more advocates and lawyers involved in the process. Transition issues, which we talked about just a second ago. Increased acuity of student needs, especially mental health issues for students and their families. I really want to emphasize and their families, and that the interface program that we've talked to you about before, we're watching very carefully and getting data. We're seeing more usage from it. We should have another data update at the end of this year, in June, see how many parents, how many folks in our city have been using it. DCF involvement is, again, huge. We partner with DCF in many, many different ways. They provide tremendous resources and help for our kids and their families. Also, not surprisingly, the state puts us at odds sometimes because of some of the ways things are done. Most recently, like the transportation issues of kids in foster care, it's just been a mess. So we're trying to wade through all that stuff. But we see more and more DCF involvement. The number of 51As that I see on a weekly basis is just continuing to grow. Larger class sizes in gen ed and special education, and we heard from Beth very eloquently about that, so I won't go into that. One that we have no control over, but I think is worth mentioning to hear, is that there's a decrease in consistent use of meds in school. Kids that have successfully had some medication that's worked for them, we see a lot of intermittent or non-use for a variety of reasons. And again, we have zero control of it. I'm just telling you what the reaction of us is seeing. Is sometimes kids have done very well, but for a number of reasons, whether it's health, mental health, emotional health, whatever, they're not using them now, and it does affect their progress sometimes in school. So we, again, I want to make it very clear. We have nothing to say about kids using meds in school. That's not our purview. But we've seen some of the reaction to some of some kids not using meds that they were prescribed.
Even though it's been prescribed and they're supposed to be taking the medications?
We have zero influence on that, and including this board is not to make a value judgment,
Oh, I
just
know
to
that.
tell you that it's something we're seeing where a student has been on meds for a number of years, they've worked, and then all of a sudden you know, the parent has been very clear, we're not taking meds, and that's fine, no problem. But
All right,
because
so
of
that's
fact-
what, that's what you're answering my question, is it parent directed or child directed?
Well, it's parent directed, yeah.
All right.
Decreasing grant funding, again, I've alluded to that several times already, and the flexibility of use of these grant funds is going down. We have less flexibility. And then, of course, ending with current trends, increase in regulatory requirements is there's more every year. Our coordinated program review, which we go through every 6 years, is changing. And next Thursday, I have to go to a workshop, and they're going to tell us that, basically, we're not going to look so much more at what you're doing compliance-wise, which, well, that's nice, okay? We're going to look at what you're doing for the kids in the classroom. How is their achievement? So the state is now finally, going to know what the rest of the country has done, is looking at how our achievement is. So it's going to be interesting to see where they do that. So, last slide, future trends. We had a recent Supreme Court decision that's going to have great impact on eligibility for special education services. The definition that we have here in Massachusetts is still greater than what the Supreme Court decision came down to, but there'll be subsequent lawsuits that will broaden that definition, I'm pretty sure. I talked about transition already. I talked about increased litigation. I talked about Mass DESI looking how they review the programming, and you know, as I've said many times, I'll end with this, students will continue to have increased acuity of needs and need more complex services. We have the complexity that we provided in the school district from FY12, since I came on board, FY17 has changed totally. Kids that are in our resource rooms right now were out of district 5 or 6 years ago. And that's the way it is. So our staff, a compliment to our staff, and students, parents, and everybody around this table, we keep doing the best we can. And I'll end with just saying, before there's any other questions, that I'm very cognizant of the hard work the committee has done over a number of years to provide for our positions for our kids. I know that special education and PPS programming is very expensive. And I know the hearts around this table care for every kid. And I'm just going to ask you, as we go into this budget season, to listen closely to the data I present to you as we go through the budget, and understand that I'm not putting positions in front of you that aren't necessary for the betterment of our kids in the classrooms. Any other questions? Be happy to entertain them.
I think Wendy was first and Heather.
So can you just remind us, since, I know we've asked you this at the end of the last budget season, but I want to ask you again, having LCE, how is that doing? Is that saving us sending kids out of placement, and what's the impact that that's having?
So I don't want to go too far into that discussion because we've had that discussion before, but I just want to say to you that LCE, like any other program that we have, that provides an alternative for kids. If we don't have the alternative, typically the alternative would be going away from our school. If a student has a disability, it certainly would mean an out-of-district placement. The other end of the spectrum is that for many kids that we don't have alternatives for, they drop out or they leave us.
And the other thing I wanted to ask you mentioned that the tutoring for like in-hospital kids, and the mayor asked about is that bidded out and things like that. When the kid is in a hospital, do we have a choice on what we use, or do we have to use what they use?
We have two ways we can go. We can send someone out to do the tutoring, depending upon where they are, and many times they're in places like Newburyport, Amesbury, sometimes out west to Springfield, sometimes down south to Brockton. Or we can use a service like Education Inc., but they've changed their name, something else now. And they charge us $25 an hour, and they provide about 10 hours of week tutoring for students.
And then the last thing I wanted to ask you was, I'll come back to it, I can't remember, so
Okay.
I'll save it.
So, going back to what you were talking about before we started educating children with autism past grade 2, what was happening to those kids once they got to grade 2? I mean, what was, you know what I mean, like,
Sure.
where did they go, or what did we do?
So there were 3 paths for the most part. The first path was that they would kind of fit into whatever classrooms worked. We had some really talented, we have lots of talented teachers, but some teachers that had some training, students, to deal with students with autism in a very productive manner, so they were credited that way. Resource rooms are the district. It's pretty much what the options were.
So, my other question is, and I think we may have had this conversation before, but I'm curious, and I think it's probably important to reiterate, if we start running into compliance issues, I mean, what is gonna happen? And, you know, what if these positions aren't filled? What is the next school year gonna look like for us?
So there's a few paths that happen because of non-compliance. Let me just take just a moment to explain that. The first path is that a parent comes to me and says, look, this isn't right, and we try to fix it. The second path is that parents would file a statement of concern with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education through their Program Quality and Assurance Office. And I need to, when that happens, I have to respond to that formally. This year, so far, we've had 8 statements of concern filed by parents. More recently, we've had 4 in the last 3 months. So over half of them have been over the past 3 months. All of them about compliance in the classroom, class sizes, those kinds of things. If a parent isn't happy or feeling like their child is being discriminated against, they can file a complaint with the Office of Civil Rights, to the Department of Education. And what happens is that every single one of those is investigated. Many times the OCR will come out to visit and interview us. Typical putting together data and dealing with an OCR complaint is about 40 hours of man-people hours.
I was just gonna ask you, what is like an average cost of one student with litigation and mediation and?
So, I want to say this about tooting my own horn, but I don't turn to our legal representatives in every single situation. I've handled OCR cases, I handle most of the statements of concerns and responses that are necessary. But in a typical school district, you know, you're looking at, you know, $30,000, $50,000, $70,000 a year.
Cost of another teacher.
Yeah, in a district this size for a special ed litigation budget. We've been, you know, over the last few years, if you look at the budget trends, we've been actually pretty good in terms of that. So, but, you know, if I had 15 compliance issues at one time, I can't handle all of them at one time. So I'm going to have to turn to legal resources for that.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Kristen's next.
I don't think that I missed it, I don't think I saw it, but what happened with Mr. McCarthy's program? I think you mentioned it briefly. We did end up expanding it this year?
So, the credit recovery program. Okay. So we are in the midst of doing a couple of different things, and certainly I'll defer to Chris Lloyd to do more, because he is the nuts and bolts of it, but we are looking to broaden the program, which we are doing. We're also looking to have all programming under the auspices of the Academic Learning Center at the high school. We're also looking at broadening the hours for the credit recovery to provide for more time for kids to do the things that they do. So that's one of the things that we are trying to accomplish right now.
How many, I think he had 7, how many, like 7 before, do you know the number now?
I have no
Okay,
idea.
that's fine. I know
I'll
it's not
defer
your-
to Chris on
Yep,
that.
yep,
He has
absolutely.
better numbers, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You mentioned increasing DC math involvement, but you also talked about the huge increase in mental health over some of the other types of services. Are you seeing more DMH involvement too with kids?
Yes, and DMH involvement in the public schools for students that are younger has historically been a situation where we've had to fight a lot to get them involved, and they are becoming more involved. We've had a couple of situations this year where we've had a cost share, and we very rarely do we get cost shares from DMH where they've been hospitalizing a student for a long period of time in a residential facility, and we're paying the day programming of that. So we are seeing that involvement a lot. Although there's still, they're a state agency that has severe funding issues, like some of the state agencies. So we're not seeing the depth and breadth, but the conversation's getting a little louder now, which is good.
And you mentioned some of those complaints, but you didn't mention, are there fines attached to any of these complaints?
Sure.
And what has that been looking like?
So for the statement of concerns, no, it really is really a matter of putting situations back in compliance on the state level. However, OCR is a different story. They can fine you, they can force you to do things you don't want to do, depending upon the severity of the nature of the situation in the school district.
Has that been increasing or?
So nationwide it has. One of the concerns with special ed directors from around the country, that I talk with because of my involvement in some organizations on it, it's becoming increasingly a situation where there's a great fear because they're facing very similar situations like we are in Massachusetts. And again, I'm going to say again, this is not just Leominster folks. This is other urban districts and suburban districts too are facing this situation. We're not alone. It's not a Leominster problem, but that you're seeing more involvement from OCR. And if it's a really, a real severe situation, and the district hasn't responded in any way, shape, or form to it, there could be some significant fines.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. We'll now move on to review student fee recommendations 2018. First item of food services, recommendations for increase in lunch fees.
Kristen, you want to do these?
I can make the recommendation. I don't know, Glenn, do you want to talk about it a little bit, or?
I think that was no.
We need to increase the fees.
All right, I got it. All right, hold on.
And you just want to talk about the historic trends. I mean, we haven't gone up in, some of those
Yeah,
things.
so we haven't raised the fees for athletics in 6 years. We're undercharging for lunches by 3 cents. So our budget is losing 3 cents per lunch. We're not getting that reimbursement that way. So we need to do this. We're going to do a little more than 3 cents to make up for this year, next year, and we don't have to raise it every year. And we're going to hold on any transportation motion because we're still looking into that.
Okay. So do you have a recommendation by the committee?
We do. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. So for the school lunch program, we can do this all at once, but I'll read it one by one. Would like to make a, yes, yeah, I'm on finance, right.
And then a second, and then we'll have some.
Right, I didn't know if I could do it though. To increase the cost of lunch and breakfast by 25 cents from $2.75 to $3 for lunch and from $1.50 to $1.75 for breakfast. All the new pricing is effective for the next school year. For the athletic fees, for high school sports, they're gonna go from $115 per sport per season to $150 for the first athlete. Ice hockey's been different for girls and boys. It's been $190. We're gonna increase it to $250. We're going to add a $75 reduced lunch fee. And if you are the second member of a family playing in the same season, and that's up to $57.50. The third is for free lunch students to go to $50 per season, and for the third member of a family in the same season. And that's a new fee. For middle school sports, we'll go to $25 per athlete. We haven't had any. We just instituted this. For intramural football, intramural basketball, and cross country. And for basketball, softball, and baseball, $50 per athlete.
Okay, that's the recommendation. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And there's a second. All right, Ellen?
Questions? Yeah. So, my concern, I'm perfectly fine with the increase in the school lunch and breakfast program. I have no problems with that. We need to stay compliant, so that's great. With the athletic fees, I understand that we haven't had an increase in, I think, close to 6 years, but what I'm concerned about is the free and reduced lunch children, because for some of those kids, it may particularly prevent them from playing a sport, and that might be what's really keeping them in school and motivated and working. So I don't know whether there's a way for any specific hardship, sort of cases. I'm thinking also about, the kids that might be in state custody. There's only
And I think we talked
limited
about that a
funds for a
little
lot
bit.
of that
I
stuff,
think,
so.
anyone should have a conversation with the coach or Maureen if it's truly hardship and they can't do it, but it's still significantly less than what we're charging everyone else. Our population is going up so much that we can't put the burden of the fee on a small minority of the team, because then we're not gonna be recouping enough to, make a difference, to be honest with you. So I absolutely understand, I agree, and I think we just need to have that conversation, the individual needs to have the conversation, and no one here is trying to exclude anybody from doing anything.
Because I just wonder, you might have a full team roster and maybe 50% are school and reduced lunch, and then they can't play next year, then you're not gonna necessarily have a team, either. So, I just kind of worry about a lot of issues, and I, on one hand, think that the burden should be shared, but I think sometimes the children should not be penalized because they didn't ask to be in that position.
And I definitely agree, I think that more recently in my life, I have come to realize why a lot of kids come to school is for sports. We're trying to draw them here, that's the draw. So we need to do as much as we can to keep those kids in. But on the other hand, we're not in the sports business, we're in the education business, and we need money, so just trying to balance.
Sure. My other thought is that we don't charge anybody to be in the drama, corps, band, or anything, any kind of extra fee, so where's sort of the equity? There's lots of kids participating in other kinds of extracurricular activities that we're not charging a fee, and they're getting bus transportation to various
I honestly don't know that to be
things.
true, so that is a good point. I think that we should look at that. I mean,
I
just don't
know we don't
Yeah.
charge them, and we're still probably
Yeah,
transporting
absolutely.
them
They
to
cost-
various functions and costumes and, whatever, sets and all kinds of
Jim,
things.
could we look at anyone who receives a stipend? I'm sure the drama,
Yep.
but, so just to see, to refer back to what I
Sure.
was saying and just see how that works and
Yep.
the cost of those programs.
I mean, I just think if we're putting a burden on people, we should probably make it
Yeah,
equitable
across the
across the
board.
board, not that I'm
They
picking
also,
on
in
them.
fairness to them, they also do a lot of outreach, so if they do a performance here, or.
There's a lot of advertising.
Different organizations might contribute, so that they also do some outreach in the community, maybe athletic groups need to get together and do some more outreach and say, go out to businesses and say, we're setting up this fund for students that can't, when they do it at state pool, at our pool, people can afford it, we raise funds to help offset those costs. And the kid doesn't have to sit outside the fence. So maybe athletics is so big in the city, maybe
I know they
maybe the
sell
group that does that.
I
advertisements
will say
for
though, that
different
Exactly.
the
things.
booster,
I was gonna say
just
the
about
same
every
thing.
team's got a booster who's already
Yeah.
boosting.
Right.
So,
Or maybe it's time for the Leominster Education Foundation to take another look at maybe sponsoring students who run into this sort of issue that they can't afford the sport. Or music, right? I mean, a lot of the cost of music and instruments,
Yeah,
people come to
very
me and say, the
expensive.
kid can't afford an instrument.
Right.
Let me know, music is important to me.
Renting is very
Let me
different.
know,
It's very
I'll pay for
costly.
it. Right, but they'll say, let me know, I'll pay for the cost of that. Well, in some areas, people, that's not their cup of tea, so they're not gonna donate to,
Right,
the arts.
sure.
It might be sport, but we haven't asked anybody to contribute to sports. So that's where, we've got.
I guess I think we
Yeah.
do ask, but it's sort
In a
of
different
team by,
capacity.
it did in different capacity, team by
Right.
team,
Maybe
because
on-
having kids who play sports, we were soliciting
Right.
various things all over the place.
Maybe go back to the Hall of Fame group that does the, sporting things for the Hall of Fame and say, is it possible that, some of the contributions, you set up a fund to take contributions that would help students who can't afford a particular sport or offset some of the costs. That way everybody gets, and you'd be surprised how people have their own thing, if they know where it's gonna go.
Yeah.
So it may be another way of looking at it. Somebody else have a question? Thank you.
I have a question about the lunch, not the raise in the fee. I think we haven't, he came from Chartwell's and told us we weren't charging enough. I'm just curious if, when this fee goes up, does that have any impact at all on what the reduce is, or is the federal program set the price for reduced lunch?
The
Federal program sets the
it.
price.
So it wouldn't affect those unless they
No.
changed it.
And I think that's what the problem is. They're expecting the school, sorry, went down the wrong way, but they're expecting the school to be charging what the federal government is reimbursing, and we're not.
And the other thing is, what is our district's
want it.
level
I know, that's what I'm
of free,
checking on.
what percentage is the entire district for free and reduced lunch?
It's almost 60, isn't it?
Well, it's 50.
57.
And what does it have to be to qualify for the program that Fitchburg has with all of their whole districts?
Greater than
60, right?
60.
Yep, we're
Oh, so-
almost there, we're working very hard
Okay,
to get there.
okay. I had somebody ask me and I didn't know the answer, so, thank you.
Other questions, please?
Ron had something.
Ron, you still Ron?
Piggyback on Eileen's question regarding the reduced lunch, the prices. And, you were saying that, somebody was saying, I don't remember which one, you go to the coach and say that, reduce free lunch, yada, yada. But I'm afraid, and I realize it's probably just me, but my little fears, I'm afraid that the kid has to go tell the coach. I
But
can't.
hopefully the parent will.
Regardless.
Right, somebody tells the coach, go ahead.
Somebody tells the coach that, Mrs. Linkwater says that I'm on free and reduced and I can't afford it. So then the coach says, okay, we'll give you the benediction, we won't take it. The word's gonna get out. That's what I'm worried about. It has to be on a need-to-know basis, and nobody has to know.
I understand it goes on all day. I think it goes on now. You might get a kid at the CTE that can't afford tools or something, and quietly it gets done, and the kid gets tools, and nobody makes a big deal about it. So, yes?
Yeah. The athletic director can easily run a program that prints out who's free and reduced. It's earmarked in the database, and the athletic director can get that list and know who might have an issue with paying their fees.
But if it's communicated, nobody's gonna know about it. I think it's been done here right along anyway, in
Yes,
all
it
the
is.
schools.
I just,
Kid needs
maybe
some help,
it's
you
me,
get
maybe
some
it's
help.
me, but I just don't want anyone to have a scarlet letter on their forehead.
Right. I think
Yeah.
everybody's
No,
sensitive
there-
about
there
that,
are
Ronnie.
people who
Huh?
have
I think
that
everybody's pretty sensitive about that.
And there are people who aren't free
I'm
and
asking
reduced,
guys,
who don't have the
Yes,
money to pay.
they
You know,
protect
that-
the price.
Something might be going on in
That's
their
what I'm
life.
concerned
Right, they could have just
The
lost their
kid-
job, they
Right.
could have sat with the terminal.
So there
That's
are
what I'm
already-
concerned
there are-
concerned about the kid's
yeah.
privacy and the
There are-
parents' privacy.
But there are people
That's
who
all.
aren't on free and reduced, who don't have the money to pay, and they, quietly, it's been going on, I guess,
Right,
already.
right.
Well, because
the
we
fine
go doesn't
line
necessarily mean
is-
we don't have I'm asking, do we have a safety feature to prevent
Well, I don't think
a
there's a
scarlet
safety.
letter on the
but
kid's
feature. I
forehead or
think
the
if
parent's
people
forehead?
understand that it's
We-
confidential.
and we
Every
do
coach,
confidentiality
every teacher.
rules.
I know we have
Yes,
confidentiality,
so
but confidentiality is like,
We have to hope that they're doing.
Common sense.
Like
Decency.
right.
that's all I'm asking, guys.
Okay. So noted. We will now, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions by any committee members? Not, if not, all in favor signify in the usual manner. Those are opposed? Thank you. Thank you.
Can I take a quick thing? So,
Yes.
we didn't have many other takers at our finance meeting the other night, so everyone remember, you're invited to come if you want to. 17, we're still trying to work out the deficit we have, and as we kind of shake all the lines out, we'll find some more money to cover those costs. And the superintendent and his team is working very hard on a big projected deficit for 18 with the Chapter 70 funding going up, a little, and our healthcare costs and transportation and raises going up more than we're getting.
So, on that note, what I would like to do this year, we have 2 months to really, May's next week.
Yep.
We have 2 months to produce a budget. I'd like to have the budget submitted to my office by around June 1st, right? Whatever the so that is.
That's
And
1 month.
in that, what's that?
That's 1 month.
Right, yeah.
You just cut it in half.
So,
Right.
oh, I'm sorry. So, I know, and this is what I fear. So, basically the budget, Glenn, and I think you'll understand this better than anybody, probably, but, so the budget should be net school spending budget. And then alternatives. So in other words, kind of like we do a bid. The bid is, this is what we'd like to do. We might not have the money to do these other things. But if we do, and you know how the bid process works, right? So in providing alternate bids, you can't say later on, we're gonna jump from, you have to say, this is what our priority is gonna be. So if we get more than our net school spending, we get 20,000 above it, this is where we're gonna spend the money, okay? Or here are the teachers that we're gonna hire. If we go above by this much, so it really needs to be done that way, because that's how we do it with other departments. Last year, when the calculations changed for net school spending, there was an additional appropriation made, and we never had a conversation about where that money went. Now, I know you needed it, because there were things that you were gonna spend, I understand that, in finance committee, I think, Kristen, you understand that.
Yeah,
But there was no conversation about where that additional $500,000 or $555,000 went. That's a lot of money not to have a conversation about. But, obviously, it's not wasted, it's there somewhere. So to avoid that, to expedite the process, you start off with your sort of net school spending budget, your budget busters, I guess, the sort of the, here's what's driving the budget this year. And then your alternatives that are in there that say, similar it was, we discussed tonight. If special ed is a high priority, it's the highest priority of whoever the decisions makers are. My budget, the budget that's submitted to me, is gonna show that clearly. We've changed some things around in the budget process because this is the highest priority. We can't say everything's the highest priority. Something has to be a higher priority. So whether you give it points, or you just come out and say, well, this is a higher priority, we need this much money to do it. But that's the way it has to be done. And so all of the debate and advocating for more money and all of that needs to happen between now and then. But the final budget needs to be, as a baseline, because we always talk about, well, how much is the net school spending number? And then, when we always go over that, it'll be the net school spending number, but the alternatives will be in there. So it'll be very clearly communicated. If we get more money, this is exactly where it's going to be. If we need 3 extra special ed teachers, and that's the highest priority of the school department and the committee, that will be communicated in a document, very clearly.
And I think that's what we talked about at our
Yes.
last meeting for sure.
Yes.
And I also want to say, we did talk about the 500, but because our budget wasn't done really until about 2 months ago, when we really got everything, there was nowhere to allocate it because we didn't know what the true number was going to be. So I
I'm
just
not
want
being
you to think
critical
we
of
did-
anybody. I'm just
Right.
saying,
Yeah.
it makes the process difficult because
Oh,
we had
and-
talked a lot
Right.
about not having enough money
Right.
to do some of the things that Ned had talked about.
Yes.
Yet we ended up having over $500,000, and we had that conversation about we need more money for that, and then we never had any more conversation.
Correct.
And I'm just saying,
You're right. And-
to be accountable
You're right.
is to, when you get that kind of money, we've never had, that was never in the newspaper, it was never anywhere, that we got additional funding that the city had to provide because the formula changed. That's a good thing. But that conversation never happened. All we heard about is we need more money for this, we need more money, and we do. And there's just no question, in all of these areas, we do. But there's, based on the budget busters that everyone's discussed for 18, that we're all well aware of, and the fact that the federal government's got less money than they ever had, and as Ned said, less money, more oversight, more paperwork. The state is clearly, 40% of their budget is heading in the area of mass health. The tax revenues are down. You can see that there isn't a whole lot of extra money kicking around. So we can argue and debate for the next month, but at the end of the day, we have the budget that is a net school spending budget, and then if we get more money, this is where we go. And I think that will, so start at the end, and I say that to all departments, start at the end, but make a document, a good document that communicates sort of needs by priority, and that would help everyone. That's easier for me to communicate to the council, to the public, to the taxpayers, to everybody. When we would go through a whole process, and then there's an extra money at the end, and we didn't really say at the end of our process that, if we get more money, this is specifically those areas that we would like to fund. We didn't have that conversation. That's not being critical of anybody. It's just how it happened because we ran out of time. We weren't sure on the budget. But this time, we have to be sure of one thing. We are stealth-like in terms of our priorities, that we prioritize the money that we have in the budget, that we have in our net school spending budget, and that we stealth-like by priority, any additional money that we get is agreed upon by whoever the decision makers are, which are here, based on the information that we collect. This is where the money's gonna go. If we get more money, here's where it's gonna go. And then the school committee needs to hold the superintendent accountable that that money is gonna be spent in those areas. That's our job.
And I just have to say kudos to Glenn for uncovering, all of
Yes.
our lines and where things should be aligned. And I feel really comfortable going into 18.
Is that you?
Being able to build something that we can talk about.
I very much
So
agree.
thank you.
This has been better in just, how many months you been here? Times 2, because I've got the budget, but maybe this is too. So in just 6 months, it's been a huge help. And I can see where you're going with the whole thing, I get it. But in order to accelerate this process into 1 month, that at the end, our heads aren't spinning, we're all on the same page, we can agree to disagree, but we're gonna know what the number is and then what the alternates are. And as I said, in the school building assistance program, same thing, right? If you have money, we're gonna add this, and we're gonna add that, but they hold you accountable. You can't go from 1 to 6, all 6, we're gonna take 6, we change our mind. No, you put 1, and that's what we're gonna fund. Okay? So that will be a start at the end, that's the end. And the net school spending is the beginning, really. And in the end, we hope the numbers change, we hope the formulas change, and there's more money. But at least we'll know where that money's gonna go. Rather than to just not put a number out there and say, let's not work towards that number. We'll go from there.
Mayor, have we received anything on the total indirect costs?
I would just use that same calculation we do every year with the, I don't know, have you heard a number on healthcare this year? 6%.
I didn't
To
know
be
if we
safe.
had something in writing.
That's the big, that's the big driver. I would just say it's consistent with the numbers there for now, and then build that into it. Unless you see something else that, I don't think much is gonna change in adding other indirects. So I would just, that's how we did it last year, I think we went. Kristen, last year, I think we used it,
Yeah, I honestly,
and we added 3% or something to the
Yeah.
cost.
I think what John
And we used-
reduced were the numbers, to be honest, and that's where we're a little bit confused, but we'll work it out.
And for instance, we didn't have the staffing to put school resource officers last year, we talked about that. So this year, we'll reallocate before the end of the fiscal year. You'll get that money credited, well, actually do an appropriation to get that back to the school department. I don't know what the numbers were, how many we actually allocated, 3 or 4, but we only used 2.
We only used 2.
And then we filled in, but we won't count the fill-ins, we'll just count the ones that we used.
Are we gonna be able to get, as much as I appreciate the cost savings, I'd rather have the resource officers, are we gonna be able to?
We're gonna try to get, we have 3 in the academy, we're gonna try to get 9 or 10 in the next academy. We just have a lot of injuries, retirements, resignations. We've had, and a lot of it unanticipated. So we're
Yeah.
working as hard as we can to get, it's a long time to get somebody in the academy. You've gotta put them through all the physicals, you gotta get the test. It's this whole long process to get somebody in. So, yes, as soon as we get the bodies, we'll have, but this year you didn't have the bodies,
Right.
total. So we'll do an appropriation to get that money back into the school budget.
And as much as we would like to see it, I guess I would want to make sure that the school system
Yeah.
feels that there's
Well,
value to having.
there's
When
your
we do-
priority.
When we do
You-
18's budget, yeah.
Yes, you decide your priority, what you decide is
Right,
that.
I just want to make sure that
I
we
just
can't
didn't know why we
second
didn't
guess.
have the people, and now I understand, they just weren't
Yeah,
there.
we're 9 short as we speak, more than that, actually, with injuries. So, yeah. So that, I think, would be a process that, and so we can spend the next month, as many meetings as anybody wants, talking about how do we prioritize things, how do we put, it's all important. As Beth said tonight, these aren't widgets, these are people, these are kids, these aren't numbers, but they're numbers to some extent. But she's right. But at the same time, our job is to take an X amount of dollars and say, what's most important and what's next to most. It's just like anybody else runs their house, anybody runs a business. If we put everything in that we wanted, there isn't enough money in the city to cover those costs. So that's our job, to prioritize it. Work with the superintendent, principals, their job is also same kind of thing, right? Take a blank piece of paper and start filling in what's absolutely necessary in the school and who is, and you hate to do it, but that's really the process. From there, we decide if Ned's program needs money, we're gonna be out of compliance. That tells me,
We don't have a choice.
that better be a high priority. It has to be. You can't keep coming here every year telling we're gonna fall out of compliance. If you don't do it, then we don't appropriate any more money. And then we're short at the end of the year because somebody spent money, I don't know where it went, because I don't know.
But a comment to that, just to be clear, you know, Ned needs, what do you need, Ned? 1.4, 1.7,
Around there.
1.6? So we're at net school spending, Ned needs 1.6. We're having to make the decision of
That's right.
no more athletics. Or we're having to make the decision of 100 teachers gone. So I just want to make sure, I mean, every single person sitting at this table votes on that.
Those are tough decisions.
It's the same decision that the police chief makes, the fire chief makes, everybody has to turn in a budget that is, this is my budget, and although I'm not happy with it, and there is more I'd like to do, I don't have the money to do that, so I have to prioritize.
Right, I
So
just
the-
want everybody to
The chief may
understand.
come in and say, look, I'm
It's
gonna,
drastic
I'm gonna
stuff.
reduce 2 positions here, but I'm getting another one here, because it's turned into a priority. This is less of a priority now, this is more of a priority, and that's what our job is. It isn't, it's to advocate for additional funding, but after that process is done, now it's our job to say, as much as we would like some people over here, that's not the highest priority. Ned's funding is more of a priority. That's our job.
I think it's just important for people, especially the public, to know that this, I mean, we really need to have this real conversation. Net school spending, that's great, but you know what? We're not kidding. We're talking teachers right now. We're talking no athletics right now. These are real options that are on the table. So I'm gonna plead with the public right now to come to school committee and to let us know what your priorities are. Because if we make these decisions and then people are leaving because of that, it's based on our decisions. So I'm gonna plead with the public right now to come to school committee and to fight for what you think is important, because we are the people that have to make that decision. Thank you.
Yeah, everyone should, that's what I'm saying. Everyone should advocate that at the end of the day, they're gonna advocate for their particular area. Our job is to listen to everybody. That's what it says in our mission statement here, that we're gonna listen to everybody and make the best decision that we possibly can based on all of the evidence. We've been kicking the can down the road, as I've said, every year, we keep kicking the can down the road, keep kicking it down the road, keep saying, hey, these are all priorities, we've gotta keep funding them. Well, now we're down to the point where instead of reducing 5 teachers last year or 2 years or aides, now we've got this huge problem on our hands because we kicked the can down the road. Every year I wanted that, we're here. We've kicked the can down the road, you can't kick it any further. You can go and try to get some more money from somewhere, some agency, and we don't have it. There isn't any money.
So how
So
many-
now,
I'm curious.
we have to do the tough job that we all told everybody we were gonna do when we ran for office. We said we're gonna make the tough decision. Here they are. The can is so far down the road, we can't see it anymore.
I have
That's how
one
far
quick,
down
I just
the
have
road.
one quick question. How many years do you think that this can's been being kicked down the road? You've been here for what, 24?
3-4 years, we're kicking the can down the road. We haven't paid our retirement, we've been paying down on our health care, we haven't paid all those things. We're just kicking down the road, spending more money. We approve a budget, then we spend more money than we have. We can't do that. That's the school committee's responsibility, to make sure we don't spend more money than we've been approved. But you can't just keep doing it, keep saying, transportation's a priority, special ed's a priority, this is a priority. Nobody can do that, and that can's been kicked down the road. We've never, in 24 years, run a deficit at the end of the year, ever. And for 2 years, we've run a deficit. We can't do that. That's where the kicking of the can comes down to, the
Well, I
last
think
2
the
years.
bucket's gonna stop this year.
Yeah, we can't see the can anymore. So the reality is, we've always finished with some sort of a surplus. We don't run in, we're spending more money than we're taking in, and you can't even do that, that's illegal. You can't spend more money than you're taking in. You can say, well, we gotta do these things, but that's not prioritizing the budget. So now, we're gonna have to make some tough decisions. Because at the end of the day, whether it's net school spending or over net school spending or how much more of it's net school spending, this committee is gonna have to make tough decisions no matter what happens. But we have to have a starting point. We're not saying we're just gonna fund net school spending, we're saying that has to be the starting point. Because we know that's what we're gonna get. That's the minimum, that's the baseline. From there, we build. and that there's some tough decisions that we're gonna have to make. We have nobody to blame but the people that are sitting around this table, because it's our responsibility.
Absolutely.
Wendy?
So I just want to say that I was glad when Beth was here, she used the word equity, because that's what we're looking at. We can't make this a sped versus gen ed, because then the community is going to be all over each other. And if the can has been kicked down the road in the last few years, I mean, if a net school spending has been voted in and it's not enough, then we need to look at asking for more, or like Heather said, we're looking at cutting major programs. I mean, certain things cannot be cut, they're required, and so it's not gonna be pretty, but we do need to keep in mind that they're not numbers, they're kids, and we have to be looking at equity in the classrooms, and we have.
And Wendy, you get a budget, right, for your home, right?
Mhm.
And you have to decide, I get to go on vacation, I don't get to go on vacation, I get to buy this, I don't get to buy this. Oil is up $4 a gallon, everybody changed their life around because that's what, the
Yeah.
utilities went up. We have to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And we get, no matter what the budget, if we get $1 million more than net school spending, it's, at some point, and we are over net school spending, and we built schools, and we did all these other things, and we have a generous transportation program, there's just not gonna be enough. And our job is to say, you know what, we listen to everybody, and not pit anybody against anybody, because we
Yeah,
shouldn't.
exactly.
But our job is to listen to everybody, and then come back and say, we don't have $150 million in our budget. We only have this amount, and we have to prioritize. That's our responsibility, to say to the public, we looked at this thing and we prioritized it based on everything we heard. And it's not to pit anybody against anybody, but let's face it, I mean, if we didn't have students coming in from school choice, our enrollment numbers would be down substantially. And a lot of the formula is based on how many kids get to school.
Well,
So-
it's a good thing we have programs that are starting to attract kids. and keep
Exactly,
kids.
and I think we've been
We have to
successful,
protect
we'll
them.
continue on with that, but, Glenn knows the numbers, look at his resume, he's been around these numbers, he knows.
And I was just gonna say, I mean, I know we all know this, but for the general public, and I know we've said it before, all of the major bulk of all of our money goes to salaries, health insurance, transportation, and that's about it. And then
Expenses is like
then
this.
there's like hardly anything left over to pay the electric bill and the,
What's-
the heat and
What-
the supplies and
What are you
everything
projecting
else.
for increase in
We
salary
have
for next
invested, I
year?
just want to make sure, we have invested in the curriculum over the past.
Of course we
few
have.
years. Just wanna make
Yes,
sure that.
we have, but what I'm saying is that the majority, we
Yes.
don't have
The
a lot of
incre-
flex.
Majority of increases especially.
Right, I mean, we
Right.
don't, right, I mean, we
Right.
don't have a lot of flexibility.
Right, no.
Because we know what we're gonna have to pay for salaries if we keep staff the same. And if we increase staff, we know exactly what we're gonna have to pay.
What's the increase
And
that-
health insurance.
That, you're using Glenn right now for increase in salary steps, if we don't hire another person?
We gave the calculation, the finance committee has been meeting either weekly or bi-weekly, and going through this.
1.5,
Yeah, I was
I
gonna say, I have years, that's about, sounds right.
Before I get to that, I just want to comment to what you've been saying here. And again, I was on the other side of the table when I was a town manager. The net school spending budget is actually called the foundation budget. That's the foundation with which you build the district. You spend more of the foundation, you start getting extra services. We've been discussing this since I've been here, and I'm sure we'll discuss it before I got here, that the foundation budget is way out of whack. It was done over 20 years ago, and there are factors in there that just don't work. Just an example, health insurance, which was discussed last week. The foundation budget says we should be spending X dollars on health insurance for a district of our size. We're spending $4 million above that. Just, that's the reality. Our district tuition, we should have 1% of our general ed population, well, enrollment going out of district. We're a little bit more than that, about 24 students more than that. The actual average tuition for those kids should be about $25,000. We have, those kids are in-house. The kids that we send out of district are closer to $75,000, $80,000. Foundation budget doesn't provide for transportation, which you talked about. The average cost of providing transportation to a non-district student is between $14,000 and $15,000. When you look at the foundation budget, which we'll provide we'll be deliberating this with the finance committee, and I call them shortfalls. That certain elements, district tuition, transportation, health insurance, were $6-7 million behind the 8 ball. So actually, the foundation is lower because it's not as high as what it needs to be. That's the state. We have to argue with the state, and we'll be doing that. The budget that's presented will be based on the foundation number, and I think you're all going to be shocked at what's not included in it. Even those of the members of the finance committee may not be shocked. But we have to dig deep to balance that budget. And we've talked about kicking the can down the road. We'll be showing you that can. It's not going any further. It stops here. Budget process is not going to be very pleasant. We have to make some tough decisions.
But at the end, our responsibility is to show a budget, put it online, to show people that, yeah, this wasn't fun. We wish we had more money. But what we can guarantee you is, this is a priority, but this is prioritized. There are no positions in here that, we didn't keep positions that we probably should have eliminated because there's something more important, because we didn't want to make those tough decisions. And that's where the problem lies, is that you can't refine yourself and reprioritize with each budget. It should be a reflection of community needs, is what the budget should be. Yes.
So our contractual increase is almost $2 million for teachers, for their increase in steps and lanes. The health insurance anticipated increase is almost $90,000. So, those are big numbers that are fixed that we.
Before you even start.
Before you even start.
Yeah.
So I think that's the really hard work that people are doing. But the one conversation, Dean, I think that we need to have with you, and I don't think this is the forum, we don't have control over, now that the school choice budget is dwindling, now that it's covered transportation, if we don't have that, I think we need to have a good conversation with, we apply the Medicaid reimbursement towards transportation for next year. I'm talking about whatever number you're building into your budget. I think we need to know what we're really working with for transportation.
Well, last year we used 3.555, whatever, and then there was a $76,000 increase because that was the difference between the budget. But that's what was asked for in the budget. So we funded that. But you spent more, and I'm not arguing that there weren't sufficient reasons for it, but you spent more than you asked for. And that creates a problem. So I think we've got to do is get a good handle on what the actual costs are going to be for 2018.
And I think we have that now.
Yes.
I think we have that now.
I think we
But
touched on it the other day.
That's something that we really can't affect all that much. We need your direct input for that.
But as long as we keep in mind that if we're taking that money, okay, that it can't also be placed in going over our net school spending. So you can't say to me on Monday,
I agree with that.
hey, wait a minute, we need more money for transportation by $800,000. And then say, hey, but you only gave us $20 more than net school spending. Well, I can give you more, but you gotta make the tough choice of what kind of bus service you wanna deliver.
I just want to make sure that we give everyone enough time to know how to kick off September.
And how we can do that is give you realistic numbers as to what option A is, to continue the bus transportation system that we have. B is to offer this. C is to just go along the main road somewhere. And in my neighborhood, one bus stops for 10 minutes.
Right.
2 stops, the bus is full.
And the superintendent is going to have someone working on that, so.
Right. So the more actual numbers that we have, like as you said, we're showing the net school spending or foundation budget, that this is what the state's saying, you should be spending this. And we're way over that by millions. Evan?
I just wanted to mention that, as I did in the past, I'm going to go to the State House, and I'd like to carry a letter to the governor and to Sandra Chang Diaz. She has introduced a bill, S-223, an act modernizing the foundation budget for the 21st century, which I think is really, really important. I know, nobody hears this side of 495, but they're not going to unless we speak.
They say they're gonna take it up this year. That's what they keep telling me, is they're gonna take it up. Whether they do or not,
They need to.
That's
But the
okay.
squeaky
They need to.
wheel gets the grease, and
Well,
I'd like to
you know what?
see us put that letter together.
I would love to be able to put that kind of letter together, and as much as I like those, resolutions that they put together, I'd much rather have a letter, in my experience, from advice on what is most effective in reaching the legislation, is to write a letter. So if everybody is
also
okay
be-
with it, I would like to do that, and then work with Glenn on numbers, how it affects us, you know, why it's so important for them to take action on this and then have.
I think we would also need to CC that letter to our state senator and state
Oh,
representative
absolutely.
as well. so
Absolutely.
not
Wendy,
just
isn't that
to-
what you were working on?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
and I need to meet with
Yeah.
Jim on.
Right,
on
that's,
getting
it sounds like just like what
yes.
you were working on, is to sort of build that advocacy with Brockton
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah.
the other communities.
And I get that,
Because they
but-
need to hear from all of these people
Yes.
that, I mean, clearly, everybody knows the foundation budget process is a way off. The problem is, nobody wants to deal with it because someone's gonna win and somebody's gonna lose, or it might mean that they're gonna have to provide more money, and they don't have any. It's clear that the state has reached into their rainy day account more times than they should have. Revenues are down. Budget buster is the state's medical care, and they can't afford that, and that's like a budget budget. So they got their own problems. So I don't know how much of the real
But
problem they
doesn't
want
hurt-
to take on.
Doesn't hurt to advocate, though.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
and I thought
So
that's what
anyways,
we
yeah.
Yeah. and
I
that
would
is
like
what
to be
we-
able to write that kind of a letter and deliver it. And
So I just,
Bless you.
God
how
bless
they
you.
all agree with.
that's what I just said.
Yeah.
Everybody can read it, everybody gets it.
Go ahead, Norma.
I'd like to make a motion that we allow Heather to draft this letter to send to the appropriate people.
Well, the school committee would draft the letter, and then would sign it, and then it would get sent.
Yeah, that's fine.
We don't need a motion, we just do it, we just send a letter, we have secretary.
Well, just cover the bases.
We send a letter, everyone signs it saying, here we are out here in Western Mass, we need to, we strongly urge you to take this up this year and look at, the foundation budget process. Mr. Ron?
While you guys were talking, I happened to Google the school district profiles, Leominster, 2014, 2015. Basically, everything you've been saying, it's all right here. The biggest thing is you have to realize both health education and insurance have never been income producers. They always eat the budget.
They're only income producers to the insurance companies and the
But
doctors.
that's, and the finite part of all of this is that, as Ned was saying, wherever he is, there are certain requirements by the federales and by the state that we have to meet. We almost have to put the net school spending and earmark what's required by the federales. And then we decide what we're gonna have for a net school
No,
spending.
Ron, I think what you missed is, and I agree with you, the only problem is, it's already been determined. She just told you that what the increased costs were for health insurance and just labor costs for our contractual obligations, are 2.1 million?
Just
2 million for salaries, almost 7
And
for
insurance.
health.
But that's
So,
over,
Just
over and
2.7.
above.
2.7
That's
million.
not
That's already
inclu-
decided, Ron.
That's not including what the federales have decided.
It doesn't.
For
Correct.
the special ed and other things by the state. That's over and beyond, over and above.
Right.
So,
It's-
to get to that increase, if we wanted to maintain what you have as an example, you would have to increase taxes by anywhere from 4 to 5%, just to make up for that one number that you've talked about.
I didn't say anything about increasing taxes.
No, I'm just saying, that's the magnitude.
I didn't say anything about increasing taxes.
Out
No,
of
no, no,
curiosity,
no,
what
no.
does 1%?
It all
equate
gonna
to?
change, there's a whole formula.
Can you give me a
1%.
ballpark? I mean, like $100,000, $2 million?
$500,000 maybe, 1%. It's not huge. But, anyway, so, everyone had valid points. Ned did a good job of his presentation tonight, very realistic, he's telling us the way it is, told us what it was last year. He wasn't patient with us as last year, because I think we weren't getting it. We got it, we understand it, but we've got a big job to do, and we have to do it in a month, so we can get it. And our job, when we end it off, the mayor's office needs to be, it's the money we know we're gonna have, and we've done the best job prioritizing it. And if we get more, here's where we'd like to put it. Mission complete. I know it sounds easy, but it's not, but that should be the beginning and an end. It just can't go on
Right.
forever. And that's how our last budgets have gone, forever. We're still talking about 16. So, with Glenn's help, Finance Committee's been working hard. We're all ears from here on in. Encourage people to share their thoughts, but at the end of the day, it's not gonna be just, it'll be our decision, but the numbers have to be justified by everybody as to, you know, each school saying, this is my priority budget because, you know, because I have to sit down and make a tough decision on priority budget. It has to come from staff and everyone else.
I do want to thank everybody on the finance committee and Glenn and the superintendent, because I do know that you guys have been putting in hours and hours and hours of work. I'm echoing it and supporting you, because I do think that
I'm getting older, you made me think that I forgot to say that.
No, I just, you know, we do really recognize that and appreciate that, so thank you, everyone.
All right, we'll now move on to. Move back
Glenn.
to.
Glenn, you're in the hot seat.
Glenn's in the hot seat.
Committee
That's all
discussion
I
with
see.
Glenn, interim school business administration regarding full-time employment. Superintendent.
All right, we've been talking about Glenn's position as an interim. Brought some information to the committee. The committee had requested that Glenn appear before the committee for any questions or concerns. And what I'm recommending as the superintendent is the appointment of Glenn Fratto to the position of school business administrator based upon successful completion of contract negotiations. So I think now's your opportunity to ask any questions that you might have of Glenn. I think we've kind of taken a pretty conclusive poll of the committee, but I was asked to have Glenn appear, so he's in front of you now.
With a mouthful of licorice. The only issue I have, Glenn, I think you've done a great job. I think you're perfect for the job. Only one issue I have is, we advertised the position, we interviewed for it, when we advertised for it, we didn't say we were looking for an interim. We made that decision later. So my fear is that somebody who might have applied for it, in other words, the conditions, knowing that this was only going to be a year trial kind of thing, didn't have that same opportunity when applying for the job. We weren't forthcoming as a committee saying, we're advertising this job and it's a 3-year appointment, but it might be a 1-year interim appointment and then a 3-year appointment. And that's my only issue is the transparency of us as a committee putting advertising for jobs. And you hear a lot of times when people say, oh, they already knew who they wanted for the job. And so people don't apply for jobs when that happens. So that's my only issue. Yes.
Two things. One,
You asking him questions.
no, I'm going to ask him a question, but I'm going to just,
Well,
I
he's-
thought it was posted. I thought this position now that we're talking about, I thought this had been posted just
Internally, it has.
internally, and then, so, which I think we can do. And so, I think that may be.
Then the original job would have to be posted.
Both jobs were. When we originally were seeking
Yeah.
a school business administrator, we had posted it, we had vetted, we ultimately,
But when you advertise for a job, you
Yeah.
advertise for a job, you have to be specific about what the job is that you're advertising for. A part-time position, you know, the sneaky way they used to do it, we say this is, sneaky way it used to be done in the past, you hire somebody part-time, then you make them full-time later, and say, well, they're already working here part-time. No, that was a part-time job you hired for. Now you're hiring somebody for full-time. And I'm just saying, the equal opportunity for everybody is to respond to the same ad, the same publication, to say, if that was our intent, to open it up to offer somebody a part-time job, then we should have said that from the beginning.
So,
If
but
we
I.
didn't, we didn't.
But I think when we hired, say, like Aaron or whatever, I thought that we did the same sort of procedure we're doing now. We didn't, post that, we hired, posted internally and hired from within.
I'm not looking for you to agree with me, I'm just telling
No,
you,
but
the
I'm
only
just
issue
thinking,
I
I'm
have
saying
here
just,
is,
practice,
Yeah.
we've done it before here, and.
we've done a lot of things here before.
All right, but
And
it
I'm just
wasn't an
saying,
issue until, so that's why I'm trying to
If you're
figure out.
putting out a job that's this important, and you're thinking that this may be a 3-year contract, or it's negotiable, you put it out there. If the time period is negotiable, you put out the same thing, because this may have been somebody was only gonna stay for 1 year, who might have applied for the job, but didn't. I mean, we're lucky Glenn came in and said, yeah, I'm willing to let you take a chance on me and me take a chance on you. I remember the whole interview, we did a really good job. I'm 100% happy with him. But I'm just saying, my only issue is with that one thing, because I like to put jobs out there and be as fair as I possibly can. And that's my only, I'm not looking to change anybody's mind, I'm just looking to say,
Yeah.
it's the only issue that I
Jobs
have.
posted now, though, so if we
I
could.
posted it
in the past-
internally. I didn't do any external
No.
advertising or anything at this point, but I'll do whatever the committee desires.
That's my 2 cents.
I-
And going into the future, If we're advertising, I just think we should be more, if we're contemplating that, we should have that discussion before we put the job out there, saying, well, what if you don't get somebody that, wants the job, and we're not comfortable, would you be willing to offer somebody, when we've advertised for somebody for interim superintendent, we've said interim superintendent. This was an interim job, and we didn't advertise for that, and we didn't let the other candidates know that. I'm just saying, if,
Breaking down the door comes along.
I
Just you gotta be honest. And my
he came
question.
here, and he's got a really
My
good
question to Glenn.
resume.
My question to Glenn is, does Glenn want to come to Leominster? Does Glenn want to stay?
He doesn't want it
in the job?
now anymore.
We are
If
so,
you guys are talking 10 or 15 more minutes, I'll make a decision. I want to say yes.
we are so happy with you. I mean, speaking from me being on the finance committee, I have been so pleased with the job you have done for us. How easy it makes us to understand our figures and where we're at and where we're going, where we need to go. You have done an admirable job, and I really appreciate you.
I'd like to second that.
And I would third that.
Same here.
Same.
Ditto. Ditto 3 ways to Christmas.
Wendy?
So I just want to say that how when my memory of this whole process was, we didn't have a whole lot of candidates for the permanent position, and then the solution was to look for somebody interim and decide where we were going to go after that. So I remember it a little bit differently, but I just want
But
to
you
say.
can do that.
Yeah, no, I know.
In other words, you
Just-
can advertise and say, look, if we don't find a candidate that we're happy with, we still might hire somebody on a one-year basis. But we didn't do that.
But for Glenn specifically, I haven't had a chance to really sit down and talk to you because I'm not on finance, but everything I've heard has been positive. My interactions with you has been positive, and I don't feel like this needs to be, from where I sit, I'm not speaking for anybody else, that this needs to be a whole big, long, drawn-out thing. I think you're an asset to Leominster, and I hope you stay.
So the only thing that I want to add is, on top of what everyone else says, we're really a big, complicated district. It's not stepping into a small town where things are very simple. This is a big, complicated district, and I hope that we've given you as much as you've given us in terms of learning what a big, complicated district really looks like, to round out, all of your attributes. I know you're Methuen, but.
It's a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
But
More complicated?
I can't say the quality of the school committee members is a bit different. No, in this way.
Yeah, right, of course.
Because you listen, you're willing to hear information that's
Oh,
not
yeah.
necessarily good. And the finance committee has heard loud and clear over the last 4 months, the shortfalls we have in the budget, this year's budget, what we're facing next year. And you're willing to pick up that can and say, let's address it now. The staff I've worked with, especially in the business office, is incredibly dedicated. We're short-staffed, but the people, they do their job. And I like working with this guy. He's pointing this district in the right direction. All the indexes I look at about, other than enrollment, where you can increase enrollment, people are coming in, they want to come to this district. You often see people at the Parent Information Center, how badly they want their children who don't live in this community to come to this community. That's a testament to how attractive it is. But financially, we're not in very good shape. But I've always been one to take on a challenge. As long as I get the same team I'm working with now, I'm glad to stand right behind the superintendent, Ned, Gina.
Well, we don't want you
Sergio,
behind,
push it forward.
we want you out front, that's why we're
All right, well,
hiring.
why don't we do the line?
Behind the big guy, for the big, with the knowledge, we'll be behind you all the way.
So Jim, do you need a motion? Is that what you?
Yes, please.
All right, so I'd like to make a motion to have the superintendent enter into contract negotiations with.
Second.
Okay, any other questions or comments? If not, all in favor? Those opposed? Okay, unanimous
Thank you.
decision? Good luck.
Thank you.
And I know Sue would concur, so that.
Thank you.
Okay, on committee, let's go to subcommittee reports, anything on finance or policy?
Finance is done, I think.
And let's go to action items. We've approved the student fees, approval to appoint. Well, we're going to delay that because we're going to do negotiations.
Yep.
Superintendent will come back. Consensus agenda, anything?
No, it's
The
nothing.
budget
else
for the
tonight.
next
Yeah.
2 meetings or so.
Right.
Pertinent? Has something else came up?
Well, I was just gonna, so we had a tentative meeting scheduled for Thursday, and so
That'd be
you.
good.
Okay, So then our next finance meeting will be Thursday here at 6:30. 6:30?
Okay.
Meeting 6:30. For all those who want to join us.
You keep looking at Cody.
Oh.
Come on, Cody.
We don't get to sit next to each other very often, so, you know.
Little jolt there.
Can we switch seats?
I know, you gotta switch it up on me. I wasn't sure it was my fault.
Okay, we'll move now on to new and old
Yeah, that's
business.
okay.
Is there anything on the new or old business?
Sure, I just want to, I know Ron wants to say something, but before you do, some of you have given me back your school committee evaluations, but some of you still have it outstanding, so
As
please.
soon as I possibly can.
Okay, because I really would like us to address that in the near future. I do have yours. So please, if you haven't done it, please do so. I greatly appreciate it.
Mr. Ron?
Yeah, under new business, last week I attended a drug abuse and heroin summit in Atlanta. It was from the 17th to the 20th. And, well, it's because the issue is royal in the city of Leominster, the state, and the country. And I've already posted some of this on Facebook, and I'm going to be passing stuff off to Monsieur le Rapporteur, because I really believe that this needs to be put out there. There was a lot of information, a lot more information than I could possibly give here at this desk. But it was for 3 days. I attended the extra days on Monday and Thursday. I learned some new words, syndemics, and it's no longer be called drug abuse, it's going to be called drug use disorder. And also heroin, it's out there in small doses, unfortunately, but fentanyl is out there. But the worst thing about the heroin and the fentanyl is that you're having a lot of people making the fentanyl in their houses, to the point where there was 3 New Jersey cops. They arrested some guys with making fentanyl at their house, and then they put it on YouTube. And I'm not making this up. So now all of a sudden everything went to bananas. The designer drugs for fentanyl and heroin, it's scary because it's stronger. Fentanyl is 30 times stronger than heroin, firstly. And the designer drugs, they really don't know the extent of the potency. And it's roiling every city, every town. They talked about this book, Dreamland. If you can get your hands on it, I really do recommend you people, anyone who's ever wanted to know about drugs but were afraid to ask, read this book. It's a carbon copy of how we are embedded in the drug scene. It's very scary. They even go to the place where it all started, unfortunately, in Columbus, Ohio. I even talked to some people from Columbus, and they told me the guy, Keone's, didn't even tell us half of the stuff that was going on, because Columbus didn't want people to be upset, because Ohio, much like other cities, is in the throes of a depression, losing the industry, so they wanted tourists to come in. So they didn't want to tell them the bad thing. And it's not over yet, this epidemic. And, as an aside, we were there for a whole week. The second day, Ellen and I were going to look for a bookstore. We found one on our way back. Don't I come across somebody who OD'd? And I had to work, to help with that person. So it's around us, even if we don't look for it. It occurs in bathrooms, it occurs everywhere. I really do, it's an important issue that we cannot know enough about it. Today, I get some nursing journal. What's the first thing they talk about? The history of opiates in the United States. So wherever you turn around, the Globe yesterday, there was an issue about how there's not enough room for women in hospitals. Children are 18 years. Eileen will tell you, there's places where the kids have to go and they can't go.
Yep. It's a very big shortage.
It's, you end up shaking your head. Anyway, I'll stop talking.
Okay,
But that's it.
That's good
Appreciate
information.
you
Thank you
pointing
for
that.
attending that course. Yes, Ms. Nona?
I just want to mention that I'm on a group, the Leominster Community Coalition, and what they do is they read during the summertime, particularly we go around to the different playgrounds and to the different community centers and read to preschool children. But one of the things we're doing this year is we're going to be putting together some of the reading books from the reading list that is online. This year it's mainly concentrating on certain authors, and we will be putting together packages of books to give out to, at these places where we go. We'll be giving these out to the students, the kids that come, so they will have reading, they'll be able to get one of their books for their summer reading program. And I think it's great that the Community Coalition can do this and can help the school system out with getting books into the hands of people who may not be able to afford to get a book.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And as also on the new business, this is another chance for us to recognize the hard work of Chris Silverman, who sits there quietly all the time. And, we have an executive from the school committee, who I know I speak, when I speak, I know how much we appreciate you, because you're the institutional knowledge of everything that goes around here. The answer is always, call Chris. Thank God you have a memory. You know where it is. Thank you.
No.
But she's behind you all the way, she
I'm
said.
lost for words.
She always has something to say.
It really is amazing. I can remember something, I'm like, I think I remember this, and then I called Chris, I'm like, Chris, what's the story on this? Oh my, she goes like right up, she knows every little detail, the parents, where they came from, this,
I've
everything.
sat there for too long.
Yeah, she just knows way too much.
No,
No, not long
And
enough.
you remember it right too, that's the amazing thing.
You're definitely an incredible
Got it.
resource.
But like with school committee stuff, and as I've always said, everything that we do goes through the school committee. So if you ever want to find anything, you have to go back in the packets and look. Now, I get to do it a second time because I do the minutes. So I live it once and then I live it again.
Right.
We're so sorry.
Lucky
I
you.
know. Yeah, it's
Fully
like
appreciate it.
living it again, so
Lucky
yeah.
you.
You're lucky me.
Anyway, I'm amazed at how you can recall things and you know the whole story about it, not just
You do.
pieces of it, like the whole thing. And I'm like, if I ever needed anybody to refresh my memory, it sharpens off then. At least I know I get the full and complete story from Chris from all ends. She's not just giving you something from.
Oh, she holds nothing back.
No, but she's giving you the parents' side, she's giving it to you all.
Give you my side?
Yeah.
No, you're pretty usually good about that. You're
That was
very
your
fair,
side?
very
I thought
fair.
that was the truth.
So,
Thank
you're
you.
much more than an employee, and you have
Oh, thank you.
passion for what you do and purpose, and those two ingredients have really made a huge difference for us as a community.
Thank you. I'm almost a Leominster person.
I know you are.
I spend my life here.
I know. There are actually people from Fitzwilliam that married people in Leominster and vice versa.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's a whole bunch of
I know.
people in
See,
Fitzwilliam from Leominster.
See?
Yeah,
So you
Maybe
learn.
they followed you?
I know, it's scary. Thank you very much.
Okay, nice job.
So we go, yes, can I make a motion to go into executive session to discuss,
Contract.
well, everything, but it hinges on contract
Contract
negotiations. So, chapter 39. And we will not be returning? No, not voting.
No, we don't have.
Okay,
will not be
so
returning.
we'll start with Ms. Kristen.
Yay?
Cody?
Yay.
Yay?
Yay?
Yay.
Okay, thank you for attending. All those who left prior but came to the public forum, we thank you and we hear your comments.